Good morning, I'm Scott, and I am a quitter, a big quitter. And I'm a wannabe quitter. I'm hoping to be a bigger quitter over the next couple weeks. Anybody with me? Well, I'm hoping over the next couple weeks we can convince you to quit. And quit on a lot of different things as we spend time over the next 4 weeks just really diving into being a big-time quitter. And I know what's going on, and I don't know you personally, and this may be your first time here, and I'm glad you're here, and you're like, why are we talking about quitting, and can I leave, fake an illness, get out of here quickly? But I know people, and there's something inside of us that's just going, that's wrong, right? Don't you feel that? You're like, quitting, isn't that wrong? Because we have this statement that just exists in our life, that winners never quit, and quitters never win, right? You've heard that before, right? You've said that before. You've told your kids that. You've taught your team that. You've told your classroom that, or wherever the case may be, your workplace. You just, there's no quitting around you. You can't quit on it, and we really can't win if you're going to quit, and quitters never win. Well, we're going to flip that around. This is hopefully a series that'll help us all grow personally, challenge each one of us, that it's not just a gimmick or a thing, or we're not just trying to play on words, but we really do believe, and I really do think God has a lot to say about how quitting things is the only way to win at certain things. And so this statement, I'm hoping we flip that around, and that quitting at certain things, that's the only way to really win. I mean, you look at people's lives like Disneyland. You ever been to Disneyland? Raise your hand if you've ever been to Disneyland. Wow. That's why they have billions and billions of dollars, right? Like, most of us love Disney, Disneyland. And Walt Disney had this to say about quitting. He said, the difference between winning and losing in life is most often not quitting, right? Like when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Like when you feel like quitting, you don't. And here's Walt Disney, who's obviously very successful, did lots of great things. Did you know he quit high school? So he's a quitter. Right? So if you want to be like Walt Disney, you should be a quitter. Some would say he didn't quit smoking soon enough, and he died of lung cancer. Probably should have quit that, right? To enjoy Disney World before, he passed along. It's a magical place. But we have this in our society that really to win in life, you can never quit. That quitting isn't good. And so why is it so hard to quit? Because at times it feels like, quitting is a good thing. Sometimes you feel like you've quit certain things. I've quit certain things. You feel like, I feel like that was the right thing to do. Like, I feel good about that. But why is it so hard for us to quit or to accept this idea that quitting? Well, we're talking about quitting equals failing. That's just out there. So if quitting really does equal failing, then why have you quit certain things and been more successful? Like at your job, why did you quit trying to do it all? Right? And you hired somebody, you subcontracted something out, or you said, hey, you over there, why don't you do that? And then you were more successful, right? We call that strategic. We call that having a business plan. Why in your family did you quit working extra hours at work so you could have more quality time with your family, right? So for your family to win, you had to quit working and being so productive over here at your workplace. When I got married, I figured it would be a good idea to win in my marriage, so I quit dating other women. Yeah, good call, see? You really do have to quit to win in life. So far, that's going well for me, so I'm going to keep on that track. But you think about it, right? And why is this such a hard thing for us? I was talking to my family this week, and we were talking about this, and my daughter Olivia, who's 7, and she saw me working on some stuff, and she goes, Dad, wait, we're supposed to quit? I'm like, yeah, you got to quit to win in life. She goes, I guess, if your stomach gets really full, you should quit eating. Yeah, all right, there you go, But it was so hard for her to grab onto, quitting equals success, because at 7, it's already ingrained in her that you have to win in life, you have to just keep chugging through, right? It's good for us when you've had 4 cookies, I should stop, but Grandma makes good cookies, so I'm going to eat a 5th one, and then I'll quit, all right? And you think about, people in life and history, what do Edison, Einstein, Rockefeller, JFK, what do they all have in common? What else do they have in common? That's good, Gordon. That's quick. I appreciate that. You know what else they have in common? If you would have found them when they were alive, if you would have found them at their workplace, wherever they at, around midday, you would have found them napping. Like you would have seriously found them on a cot laying there napping. You would have found JFK, apparently he ate lunch in bed and took a nap every day. You would have seen them napping. And if you go to your workplace or if your boss rolls into your, where you work, your office, your job site, and sees you napping, what's going to happen? Right? Hey, take that on home and don't come back, right? I mean, here's guys that just, quote unquote, quit during the day to be more effective, to be more productive. Edison said, I got to take a break and let my brain rest, my body rest, and take a 15-minute power nap and jump back into it. So we have this hard time. We're thinking quitting equals failing. I'm going to hopefully convince you to this morning and then over the next couple of weeks as we talk about this, what God has to say and what I believe that really to quit on certain things will mean you win. And if you continue certain things, you're going to continue to fail. Here's another thing why it's so hard to quit is we just have too much invested at times. Whether it's a relationship or it's a business deal, right, or it's a project you're working on, it's this economic term called sunken cost, that you've just put so much energy, so much time, so much effort into something. You're so far down the road. Like if you quit now, you have all of this loss that you've put into it. And we get just looking backwards and go, we can't quit now because we've invested too much. It'll hurt too much to quit now that we're real close on breaking through. And again, there's you gotta hear me correctly. There's times where you gotta persevere and go, and you can't quit on certain things. But at times, it is the right thing to quit. But it's hard because we have too much invested, or we have a loss of identity. And I think that will be kind of some of the things that we'll all have a tendency to struggle with over the next couple of weeks if we're honest with ourselves. That if we're talking about quitting certain things, the healthy things that we need to quit, that we'll begin to have a void of like who we are. That if we quit making excuses as much and worrying as much, and as if we quit complaining as much or comparing ourselves to one another, like, well, what do I do then? Who do I become? Because I feel like that's part of who I am, and we will struggle with this loss of identity. And we're going to dive into comparing ourselves this morning and comparing ourselves to other people. And hopefully today we're going to quit comparing. That you and I, that we'll venture in down this road a little bit farther of just quit comparing ourselves to one another. Quit living our lives this way. Look to the right, look to the left to figure out if I'm okay. Like, how am I doing? Doing all right? How did my spring break trip go? I look over here, I'm doing okay. I look over there, oh, not so good. Didn't go to Mexico. Okay. How's my family doing? How's my kids? My kids are looking over here. I'm all okay. The kids are okay. They're pretty smart. Okay, not so much over here. How's my wife look? My wife look, okay. Oh, I'm going to look straight ahead. How does my grass look? Neighbor on the right, looking pretty good. Buddy, you might want to get some weed control going. Look over here like Scott's turf builder. Okay, not so good. So we live our lives with this comparison. We're looking to the left, to the right to see how I'm doing, to see how I'm living. Am I okay? Am I on the right track? What am I comparing myself to get a perspective on where I'm at in life? Andy Stanley says it this way. He's a pastor in the Land area. He says, there's no win in comparison. That there's just no win. As you begin to look to the left, as you begin to look to the right, how's my business doing? Are we doing okay? And I need a competitive advantage. And what are they up to in the marketplace? And how are they rolling out new stuff? And how do they service people? And am I doing okay? Are we ahead of them? Are we behind them? And there's no win in comparison. There's no win for you. There's no win for them. There's no win for the people around you. You think about living your life totally looking to the right and to the left. I like to run, and Amy and I, we do a lot of running. Last Saturday, I was out for a run, and it was a long run, and right now long runs are about 13 miles. And so I was out for a long run. It was real hot. You remember last weekend, it was sweaty, and so it had been about 11 miles into the run. And it was a rough run, and I'd struggled through, and I'm about 11 miles, and I got a couple more to go, and I'm close to home and trucking along. And it's a pretty lonely time at times out there. It's just you. And then you, and there's a road, and it's kind of nice to see some people. Even if they're going the opposite way, you just wave at them like, hey, you're one of us weird people out here doing stuff. All right, awesome. You bike and you run. And so I'm out there, and I look over, and across the street, there's this guy. And I'm like, hey, it looks like a runner guy. And he's got his iPod going or whatever, and he's walking. And he doesn't have a shirt on. He looks like he's a pretty athletic dude, and he looks like he's a runner. And I'm like, hey, there's a runner guy out here. This is awesome. And I'd been struggling through it, and my coach has me on a certain pace, so I'm running my pace. And then he's walking, and I'm like, he looks pretty good, pretty athletic, and I'm beating him. Like instantly, I just go into this comparison thing of like, who's next to me, and I should look there, and I'm like, oh, there's this guy. And then 3 seconds later, not even joking, 3 seconds later, he just takes off and just starts going, like with this crazy sprint. He's just trucking. I thought, I can keep up with him. So I just started trucking, and I'm running, and I'm looking, and I'm like, I'm doing pretty good. And we literally get 30 seconds in, and then he quits, and he starts walking. And I'm like, wait, what are you doing, buddy? And I look down at my watch, and I'm running like 45 seconds faster per mile than I should be running, right? And to have health on a long-term plan and whatever, I'm running. I'm like, whoa, this is way too fast. This is not good. I can't go this fast, this long. And so I slow down, and I'm like, okay, just got to stay in my lane. And about 30 seconds later, you know what he did? He started running again. And you know what I did? I started running with him. Because I'm comparing myself, and like he looks fit. Well, I'm fitter. He can run. I can run faster. How long have you been out here? I've been here 11 miles, buddy. Where are you going? And down the road we went, and I'm looking to the left and watching him as I'm running. And so much so that it just got crazy. You know what I did? I took a right. I said, I got to get out of here. I can't run next to this guy anymore. Like, it's just going to mess me up, what I'm trying to do today, what I'm trying to do long term. So I took a right. And I got on a different street and just like, okay, find your pace again, run your pace, run your own race, stay in your own lane, okay, get it. And then I had to circle back around the block to go home. And so you know what happened after about a mile and I circled back around? There he was again. And he literally was like a half mile down the road, and I could see him just sprinting up a storm. And I wanted to run with him again. Like, what is that inside of us that just live our life like I wasn't going to win. He was on an interval run, right, where you run really fast and then you run really slow. I was on a long, steady run. But so much of my life and so much of our lives where we get looking to the left or to the right, and then we begin to live their life. And then they switch gears and we get thrown off because you're like, what did you do? You're walking. We can't walk. Why are you walking? And you know the funny thing about the whole thing? I don't even think he ever saw me. Right? Because there's actually no finish line in comparison. There's no finish line. Like we fool ourselves, think there's a finish. There's no finish line. And here I am trying to run his race that he's running. And I'm trying to beat him. And I'm trying to somehow internally get his attention to see how great I am. Because I'm living your life better than you are, buddy. Mr. No shirt, big muscles. Like, you know what I'm saying? And he doesn't even notice me, right? And we've all done the same thing. I know you're laughing with me as we live this story, that you've bought stuff that you don't even like to impress people at a stoplight you'll see for 3 seconds. I mean, you've gone on trips to places you don't even really care about, but you hear that's where everybody's going. You know, you've gone to restaurants and eaten certain foods because that's the thing that everybody else. I mean, you went to college and spent a couple of years and thousands of dollars for somebody else's life, your parents' dream, or what you thought would be a great, adventure or to make tons of money. I mean, we've all lived somebody else's life where we just begin to look left and begin to look right. Am I doing okay? Am I all right? How's it going with my life? There's no win in comparison. James, the brother of Jesus, said this, because you know what happens when we compare, we begin jealous. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder and evil of every kind. As we begin to look left and right, we begin to become jealous and we become selfishly, motivated. And then it just turns into disorder. I mean, have you ever felt like your life was just jumbled and disordered? And it could be that really, really to the core of it could be you're just looking left and looking right, trying to live their life instead of your own. Solomon was one of the wisest men, maybe the wisest man besides Jesus who walked the planet. And if you want to feel bad about yourself, compare your life to him, right? I mean, he ruled the world when he walked the earth. He was one of the richest men ever to live, richest man probably of his time. And, he was a man, his wives were more beautiful than yours, right? He had more power than you'll ever had. He had more wisdom. God gave him this supernatural gift of wisdom. Unless you have world leaders traveling around to come to your house and sit at your feet and ask you some questions, you're probably not as good as Solomon. So here's this guy with this great amount of wisdom that God had given him, and he writes this: at a heart at peace gives life to the body. That when your body is at peace is when your soul and your heart finds rest and there's tranquility and there's peace, and it just produces this wellspring of life to you that day and that season of your life, and you've experienced it where you just felt that peace. And regardless of the circumstances, that when your heart finds peace, when your heart finds contentment, there's life to your body. But envy rots the bones. But this jealousy, another translation says this jealousy is like injecting cancer into your body. That it just from the core, from the inside of your bones begins to rot your life. Why would we live a life looking to the left and to the right and voluntarily inject cancer into our bodies? Right? What is it about us? What do we do with that? Because we all do that, and we all have that tendency, again, to look left and to look right, and then you feel like you straighten out, and then you're back to looking left, and you're like, okay, I got to get back on track, and then we look right again. So what do we do with that? I mean, some of you have experienced the traumatic effect cancer has on our physical body, so why would we voluntarily, something that we can totally control and 100% in control of, inject jealousy into our body? And so Solomon, who lived a long life, and then he wrote this book called Ecclesiastes. And it's a great book in the Scriptures, and if you have a Bible or YouVersion app or something, you can turn there. We'll be there here in a second in chapter 4. But he writes Ecclesiastes, and it's just one of those things. You don't even have to be a Jesus person. You don't have to be a church person. You don't even have to agree with God or even know what really God has to say to read this book, and you just would read along, I bet, and you would just go, yep, that's right, that's right. And a lot of things that Solomon has to say, because he's got this God-given supernatural wisdom. And he is just at the end of his life, and he's looking back. And here's a man who had plenty of power, plenty of wealth and opportunity. And I think he began to sit back in life, and he'd had all these world leaders, so he had a huge context to his life, and had many different cultural understandings. But yet he probably heard the same questions come up over and over and over again. Different cultures, different contexts. He probably had the same problems that would show up as people would come from around the world and ask him different things and questions. And he just thought, you know what? And with God-given supernatural wisdom, he just began to observe how life worked and how life didn't work and how he had lived. And a man with great wealth and power and lots of wives. And so he's very familiar with handling lots of different things. And so he writes this. He says, "Then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors." That as he sat back and he looked around the world and had heard stories and probably talked with world leaders who had struggled, people who were very successful at his time, who had looked at the neighboring country, not just individuals, but neighboring countries, and were envious and jealous and were doing different things to outdo them. And he's as he probably heard and listened to, and he got to the end of his life and was more, had a better perspective. And he just probably sat back and go, as I observe, most people, most often, are motivated by the success, the jealousy that they have for their neighbor and what they're doing. And he goes, this too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. That living our lives looking left and looking right is like going after the wind. You can't catch it. Exactly. It's meaningless. That this comparison of looking and something that we should really quit, right? We should quit looking to the left. We should quit looking to the right and live the life that is set before us. He's saying it's meaningless. It's chasing after the wind. It's going nowhere. There's no finish line here. You never could catch the wind. As soon as you think you got in front of it or ahead of it or beat it, it would be ahead of you. And I know it's one of those things as a man, I hear that and like, okay, well, shouldn't we have drive? Shouldn't we go after life? Shouldn't we be go-getter? Like if the guy's running next to me and he's going faster, like shouldn't I run faster at times? Race day I do that, right? And what about just, ambition and drive and desire? And isn't that God-given at times? And what should we do? Sit back, fold our hands, and go, whatever, and sit on the grass? And Solomon, in all of his wisdom, says next, he says, no. He says, fools fold their idle hands, leading them to ruin. So he's not talking about being casual in life or sitting back and doing nothing with our lives or not having ambition or drive. But he's saying, you know what? Let's not live our lives looking to the left and to the right. So he gives us something helpful. Hopefully in this I Quit series over the next couple of weeks, it's not just to quit doing something, but to maybe start, restart, or add to doing something. That if we're going to quit doing something, if we're going to quit comparing, for a lot of us, we're going to have a lot of empty time on our hands. And so, no, just me? Just me, all right. Maybe a lot of us, right? If we really quit looking left and right, what are we going to do for the rest of the day? It's already 8:30 in the morning. What else do I got to do? Well, hopefully we'll add to, right? By subtracting from our life, we'll add to and do something else. And so he says this. He says, but yet, better to have one handful with quietness than two handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind. And Solomon's so great. God-given wisdom here. I love his picture he paints. He goes, it's better to have one handful like this with stuff in life, our possessions, our opportunities, success in life. Better have one hand like this and one hand like this. Talk about a peaceful heart. Talk about tranquility. To have an opportunity to have stuff, but your stuff not to have you. To have opportunity to live a life in front of you, but your life to not run you and to direct everything. That you'd have one open hand for God to put stuff in and take stuff out. For one open hand to live life without always having to try to grab with two hands. Better to have one hand open than to have two handfuls with hard work and chasing after the wind. Because what happens if we live a life with jealousy and with envy, where we begin to look left and we begin to look right? You're going to try to grab as much as you can, right? You're just like me. We're people. I know people. We try to grab as much as we can. And then once we have two handfuls, well, you know what we want? Yeah, a third handful, right? And then you're bear hugging something. You're like, get over here, and you're like, I can't let go of this. I can't let go of this, and I'm going to grab this over here, what can I get my hands on? And Solomon's saying, you know what? As I observed and sat back and watched life and experienced life, and a man that had tons of stuff, and you see the temple he built for God and the treasures that he had and the power that he had and the influence. I mean, the man had two handfuls of stuff, and he had more stuff and then stuff on top of stuff. And he said, you know what? As I observe life, that we live life looking to the left, and what are you doing over there? Am I okay? You okay? No, you're not okay. I'm way better than you. Oh, better live one life with one hand like this and one hand like that. That's a peaceful heart. That's a heart full of tranquility and contentment. Because here's what happens when we look left to right. Comparison, you know what it does? We've been talking about it. It leads to coveting. Coveting is this uncontrolled desire to have two handfuls and want more. Coveting is just where you begin to be obsessed with having what they have, right? And as a parent, I think it just exists in my little kids, right? They just want what their sibling has, only because their sibling has it. It can be the silliest toy that nobody's ever played with for years, and it was lost in the closet, and there's dust on it, and then somebody finds it, and then what? World War III. I want it! Like nobody wanted it until somebody had it. We could have thrown it away and given it away. Nobody would have cared. But it's this uncontrolled desire, right? And then I just want to think it exists in 4, 7, and 9-year-olds. But I think it exists in 40 and 70 and 90-year-olds as well as for people. Because don't get me wrong, ladies. You ever got a haircut and then you went and saw a friend and they had a haircut? And then you said out loud, oh, cute haircut. And then inside you're going, my hair doesn't look that good. Why doesn't my hair look that good? Like, what's wrong with her? Like, I think my haircut's cuter, but she's doing the same thing. And then you're going, I got to get another haircut. Right? Guys, you've never done this. You never walked into somebody's house and go, oh, that's a big TV. That's nice. And inside you're going, why do they have a big TV? How do they afford that? What kind of deal is that? Why do they deserve a big TV? TV rots your brain. I don't know why they're watching so much TV over here. What's wrong with them? They should get out and get outside, get a hobby. I got my 48-inch ain't big enough. What size? That's 60-inch? Nobody needs 60-inch except for me if you want to give that to me. Right? I mean, what does it do? This comparison leads to this, I got to have more. I got a 50-inch TV, but your 80-inch TV is better. You redid your kitchen. Those are great countertops. Right? Like, I don't know why people need that kind of fancy countertops, Be happy with the countertops you got or something. I'm not happy with my countertops, but that's because mine are bad, and they should really be updated. And I mean, it's really bad. How'd your kid get on that team? Your kids, you're on the super select soccer team? Huh, interesting. That kid can't guard nobody. Can't guard a shadow. How did that kid make it? My kid should be on that team. They paid somebody off. I can't believe it. I mean, if somebody deserves to be on that team, it's my kid. The super select soccer team should select my kid because they're great. You got the promotion? Oh, that's awesome. Good for you. I'm glad you got the promotion at work because you're really good. No, really excited for you. I wouldn't want it. You're a better man for the job. Just good for you. Hope you don't get paid more. I mean, it's just, let's give them more work. Like, what is up with the comparison that leads to coveting? I'm not talking about like healthy comparison. You can learn from people. We can be educated. I watch Michael Phelps swimming videos, okay, to try to be a better swimmer. I'm trying to be a better cinder block in the pool, okay? So you can learn from other people. But it goes wonky real bad, real fast, doesn't it? I mean, it just crosses the line instantly. Because I get in the pool and I start swimming and I'm just trying to be the best cinder block I can be. And then there's this Y swim team, and they show up between 4 and 5:30, and sometimes I swim after work, and then I get in the lane next to them, and then it just happens where you push off the wall at the same time, and you're swimming, and then this little person goes right by you, and it's a junior high girl. You're like, oh, you must be on intervals like runner dude, okay? Because I'm on the warm-up still. All right, I'll catch you next time. Because when you compare and then it leads to coveting, which happens like super fast, it's one of our favorite pastimes as American. It just is super fast. Coveting will lead to never being satisfied. That why should we quit comparing? Because we'll never be satisfied with what we have. We'll never be able to enjoy what we've got, our life, and where we're headed, because we'll always be looking left to the right. We'll never have satisfaction. We'll always be wanting 2 fistfuls plus more. How can we try to squeeze a little bit more into this hand and that hand? What if we lived with one hand, when contentment, one hand open to allow God to put in and take out whatever He wants to direct us? Are you allowing what others have to keep you from enjoying what you have? That I think that's a question that you should be asking yourself, we should be wrestling with. If we ever find ourselves, am I comparing just to learn and be productive and be effective, and there's valuable skills and trades, and I can learn from other businesses and other salesmen and what they're doing, but is it taking away? I don't know. Here's a great question to know if you're off track. If what others are doing is taking away the enjoyment for me to be able to just enjoy what I have, what God's given me in life, my lot in life, my gifts, my talents, my opportunities. It's a great rebalancing question that I think God would have us ask. Because the other thing here that coveting does is we look left and look right. Am I doing okay? It's just a celebration stealer. And I don't even know if that's a great grammatical phrase there, but I thought, you know what it does? It steals the celebration. That it's hard to, and we'll say it, but it's so fake, and I fake it, and I try to be the best faker I can at times, but hey, that's good for you. Like, really, I'm excited for you, and inside you're going, no, I don't like you at all, I hate you. Like, why are you going to succeed, It's just a celebration. It steals joy from inside of all of us. It just celebrates. Instead, as we look left and we look right, we should see people and the uniqueness that God has put inside of them and the greatness that God has put inside of them. And as they begin to live that, you know what we should do as people, especially as Christ followers? If you identify yourself as a Christ follower, you know what we should do? We should be like, yeah, good job. Right on. That's awesome. You go for it. That is so great. Like, you go get it. That's God has given you. That is incredible. That is so wonderful. You deserve that. That is amazing. You don't even deserve that, but God gave that to you. It's awesome. You go for it. You're doing great. Good job. Live life that way. Not fake, not disingenuous, not trying to be like happy for them so that you somehow get happy for yourself. Like to really celebrate with people, not let it steal the joy. I mean, in high school, you ever on a sport? I was on a sports team, basketball team, and there was people that were a lot better than me, like a lot of them, I'm a short white guy, and I was trying to play basketball. Anyways, did you ever have like me? Did you ever have where like the star player would miss an open three? And you're like, yes. No? Just me. I mean, you ever secretly like excited about someone else's failure? What is that in us? That's that jealousy thing. That's that envy. That's that coveting. And like basketball team, they could be on the same team. We're trying to win, right? We're together. But somehow you're just secretly excited that they got a B on their test finally. You're excited that they didn't like make all of the sales quota this month because they always beat you. You're so excited that, one of your competitors like closed down their shop or had to scale back their business because they're not quite making it. You're excited that the person with the perfect kids and the perfect relationship, like you saw them arguing and fighting. You know, you're like, yeah, their kids throw tantrums on the floor. I'm so excited. Like, what is that? Is that jealousy? Like, are my kids okay? Well, they're better than those kids, so yeah, we're doing all right. I'm glad those kids screwed up once in a while because they seem like the perfect family. Have you ever secretly celebrated someone else's failure? Be happy with those who are happy and weep with those who are weep. God says, let's be happy with people. Let's celebrate with them. Be fully engaged with where they're at. And the same token, it's hard to be like right there, empathetic, sympathetic with people who are weeping if you're going, well, I'm glad I'm not them. Like, sorry they're going through a bad time, but I'm glad I'm not them. And again, there's room to be thankful and to have gratitude towards God about not experiencing certain things. But if it disengages you from where they're at and you can't be fully present with people, I think it gets us off track. Here's another thing. Coveting just leads to a life unlived. You've got a life to live. God has put greatness and uniqueness in inside of each one of you, and you've got incredible gifts and talents. And if you go to try to live somebody else's life, who's going to be living yours? Nobody. Nobody can live yours. And listen, the life you're trying to live, we should look to your brother-in-law or your parents or your coworker. They already got that position locked up, okay? There's only one Scott Langhans in the world, and we're all thankful for that because we don't need more of me. But I got this position locked up, so go live your own life. Like, let's quit trying to live somebody else's because there will be a life unlived. So who or what are you getting your cue from to live your life? If it's not your left, not your right, I would encourage you to look to the one who made you to get your cue. To ask God, what is your God-given talents and gifts and abilities, the calling that you should be living, that God has put before you, and to live those out. And so here's Solomon back. He says, I observed yet another example of something meaningless under the sun. Aren't you glad you came this morning to listen to all this meaningless talk? Just worthless nonsense. And here's Solomon, and it just is so captivating for me. Here's another meaningless thing that he's looking at. This is the case of a man who is all alone. This is without a child or a brother, yet who works hard to gain as much wealth as he can. He's saying he's all alone. He has nobody to leave his stuff to. In that day, you couldn't leave anything to a woman. You couldn't leave it to your wife or, you had to leave it to a man. And so here's this guy, he's working, and he's all alone. And he's working busting his butt to get as much wealth as he can. He's got 2 hands full, and he's saying, how can I get some more? He's living life, and he's trying to bear hug some more, and he's trying to get his arms wrapped around. And then he asks himself, who am I working for? Why am I giving up so much pleasure now? It is all so meaningless and depressing. You can just kind of picture a man who had worked a long time and developed all this wealth, and then he just pause and go, wait, what have I been doing for decades? Why have I been working so hard and just not living my life, and I'm trying to get 2 fistfuls, 3 fistfuls, big builder barns, big builder, skip that, and just get stuck. And he's just bear hugging it, and he goes, this is meaningless. My pursuit in my life. For decades, I've built all this wealth. I can't leave it to anybody, and I can't take it with me, right? That's what that's implied. I can't take it with me. I can't leave it, and I've missed out on living my life. It's a life that's been abandoned, unlived. I avoided all this pleasure and enjoyment with the people around me. Who knows? Maybe he's a person who never got married. Like, he's thinking, what if I would have got married? Well, I could only had 1 handful and an open hand, and God would have put in and taken out as He willed and as He wished. And I would have been content with that and would have been okay and would have been at peace and had tranquility. And quit comparing my life to how are they doing? How much wealth do they have? And how are they doing? And what kind of car do they drive? And they got promotion. And where should I be at in my stage of life? And you're 35 or you're 36. Okay, where should I be? Are you okay? Am I okay? It's like it's so meaningless and depressing. So what if you change things now? What if on the proactive side you started to again change things? Regardless of what stage of life you're at, it's always the right time, it's always time to do the right thing. Now, you may be thinking it's too late, too much. No, You could start today. What if you begin to change things and live a life with 1 hand contentment and 1 hand open to let God move things in and out? What if you quit comparing so that you could celebrate with others? So we wrap up here this morning. What if you genuinely just were able to celebrate more with people in your life and around you? that you could quit comparing and try to figure out if you're okay and just genuinely be excited for people, what God has given them and what they're doing in life and what's happened with them. Oh my goodness, it would change so much for each one of us. Imagine what that would be like in your own soul. There would be such a deep satisfaction of joy for other people. And we've all caught glimpses of it where you have somebody in your life and you're just like, I'm so glad that happened to you. This is so great. You're just the right person for you to get that job. Or for when someone has a baby, right? And they're just having a baby, you're like, this is so great, so excited for you. You're genuinely excited for them. And as a parent, you're like, and praise the Lord, I don't have to get up in the middle of the night, and change diapers. And there I go again comparing myself to them, right? But what if you just spent your life celebrating people? Like, what if you tried that today? What if you tried that this next week? Because here's the thing. We get the highlights of each other's life. Right? And social media doesn't help us, and the news doesn't help us, and magazines don't help us, and they just give us the highlights. So if you don't want to quit comparing, then at least do this. Compare your whole life to their whole life. If you don't want to celebrate with them, you're going to have to compare everything, all their struggles, all their ups and downs. But I would think, you know what God would have us to do? He would have us celebrate with one another. Be happy, rejoice with people as they're rejoicing, as they're excited. That we wouldn't just compare highlights to one another, to our everyday life. That's what we do, right? We compare their highlight to my everyday life. And then I would quit comparing so that I could actually live my life. Live the life that God has called you to be. There is such a deep, deep satisfaction that comes from living the life that God has called you to live. Just you. Uniqueness. He's put greatness inside of you. He's got gifts and callings and talents that are really, you may feel like they're tapped and they're exploding, but He's got more for you than you can ever imagine, and He's put that inside of you, and only you can live it. And there's a deep satisfaction that comes every single day as you wake up and go, I'm going to live today to glorify God and to live out what He's put in front of me. That is such a deep, satisfying thing for our soul as we begin to look left, and when we find ourselves looking left, we celebrate with people. Go, that is awesome, and the life you're living is a life that God's called you to live, and I want to encourage you in that, and I want to help you with that. But I'm going to be over here in my lane living my life. I'm going to be doing what God's called me to do and following Him. And you will glorify God and have a deep satisfaction and a joy in your soul that would be beyond measure. The purpose in your life, the meaning in your life would be beyond what you could even understand. And it would get great, and you think it couldn't get any greater, and then you begin to experience God more, and it gets more and more greater and wonderful, and it's awesome. So let's be a bunch of big quitters and quit comparing our lives to other people and celebrate their life and live the life God has put in front of us. Amen? Let's pray. Jesus, we're thankful.